It's the scream that no one seems to hear.
I'm innocent.
The cry from deep in the soul, echoing off the thick concrete walls of the big house.
I'm innocent, from the beginning to the end.
A convicted killer claiming he's innocent.
I would have called the president. I'll call anybody. I didn't do this. Will you help me?
But in this case, could Desmond Ricks really be telling the truth?
They said, we just want to ask you some questions. So I go down there, the questions turn into 25 years.
His conviction based on ballistics evidence that pointed to him as the killer.
Perry Mason couldn't have won that.
On a blustery afternoon in Detroit, Desmond had just become the proud father of a baby girl and was spending the afternoon with his best pal, Jerry Bennett.
What was going on that day? Who were you with that day?
I just had my daughter, and she was 3 days old at that time. You know, me and Jerry, we talked, you know, back and forth, and he was going to make a few runs, he said. Maybe go to the store or something like that.
Desmond and Jerry swung by a local burger joint that used to be on this street corner. They didn't know it, but murder was on the menu.
I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. Once I got there and I seen what was surrounding what's going on, I know what's going on. I'm like, wait a minute, man. You say you had, I got somewhere to go.
Desmond claims he only then realized that Bennett was actually meeting another guy to make a drug deal.
Next thing I know, he get out of the car. The other guy gets out of the car. They go in the restaurant. They come out of the restaurant. That's when all the shooting and stuff started. And the passenger sees the car. I don't know what's going on. I just happen on the side of the rearview mirror. I can look at the back, and I can see him shoot him the first time. He shot him in the head.
Then a second bullet ripped through Bennett's abdomen. He was dead on the sidewalk. Desmond says he freaks out and jumps out of the car to run. And then the gunman takes aim at him.
The guy shoot at me a couple of times. I run. You know, I'm running. I don't know. I can't help him at this point. So when he shoot him and he raise up like this and the gun is looking me right in my face, what am I supposed to think?
But as Desmond runs for his life,
my coat got caught in the bushes. It has all my hospital pass in there from when I visited the hospital with my name on there, my driver's license, all my IDs in there.
Detroit cops said that undeniably placed Desmond at the crime scene.
The police come a couple of days later, 2 federal agents and a Detroit police officer. So they come in the house, they ask my mother, do she have any firearms in the house? Now, she got a gun that's been registered since the 70s. You know, this is a registered firearm with the city of Detroit. So it's on record. They go in the back, get the firearm and come out. One of the police say, this is not the gun. The other guy say, well, just take it anyway.
Cops seize Mom's Rossi .38 Special, similar to this one. They take Desmond to Detroit's 12th precinct for questioning.
They told me, we know you didn't do it, but we think you know who did. And I told them, I don't know those people. Don't know them, never seen them before in my life. You're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. I stuck to the truth. Can you imagine that? A person looking you in your face like I'm looking you and telling you, I know you're innocent, but if you don't tell me who did it, you're going to jail?
That's what they told you?
Yes, yes ma'am. That's not justice.
If you don't tell them who
If I
did,
don't cooperate with them and tell them who that man was that did that crime, I was going to prison.
But you didn't know who did it?
No ma'am. To this day, I don't know. I don't know those people. Don't know them. Never knew them.
So how does Desmond suddenly go from witness to suspect?
He was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Desmond's attorney, Caitlin Plummer, says the key evidence that allegedly tied him to the killing? His mother's gun. Detroit cops base a case saying he used it to kill his best friend.
The ballistic experts came in this case and said, 100% this is the gun. It could not be another gun.
Look closely at these pictures of the slugs the medical examiner removed from the dead man's body.
They were sent to the Detroit crime lab. At that point, the crime lab had the 2 bullets from Mr. Bennett's body, and they had Desmond's mother's gun. And so they compared the 2, or said that they compared the 2 to determine whether those bullets that came from the body were fired from Desmond's mother's gun. And this was a match, that these bullets were fired from this gun and that they could have only been fired from that gun. And of course, if that were true, that's very incriminating evidence, because there was never any dispute that Desmond was at the scene.
Desmond was charged with murder and put on trial. There was no apparent motive, and the main piece of evidence, that ballistics report. And the jury bought the ballistics argument. They found Desmond guilty of second-degree murder and the illegal use of a firearm. His sentence, 32 to 62 years in state prison.
When you did hear the word guilty read in court,
Yes, ma'am.
what was that moment like for you?
A reality check. You're going to prison for 30 years for something you didn't do. Now you got to figure out how you're going to deal with it. No need to be crying. You know, a real man is going to do what he has to do. People say light at the end of the tunnel. There was no tunnel. It's all dark. There was no tunnel. There was no nothing.
From the moment he walked into prison as a convicted killer, Desmond Ricks told everyone he was innocent of the murder of his best friend, Jerry Bennett.
So all your boys around you in prison, all your clique knew you were innocent?
Everybody, the officers, the police, the warden, everybody knew I was innocent.
Everybody in the whole
The warden
prison?
knew I was innocent.
Was there something fishy about the ballistics evidence that sent Desmond to prison?
The bullets that were removed from the body were 38s, and the gun that was allegedly used by Mr. Ricks was a 38. And what we know about this gun is that it produces certain markings, that it has certain lands and grooves that could not possibly have matched the bullets that actually were removed from the body. There's no way that this gun could have shot those bullets based on the markings that we know exist.
But that's not what the cops said. The police evidence technician testified in court that the bullets that killed Bennett were indeed fired from Desmond's mother's gun.
What was going on in your mind when you heard that those bullets came from your mother's gun and killed your friend?
That the police kept their word. They were going to send me to prison.
This man actually helped send Desmond to prison. David Townsend was then a firearms examiner with the Michigan State Police. He was the court-appointed ballistics expert at Desmond's murder trial.
The first time you saw those bullets, what went through your mind?
Well, the first time I saw them was when the detective brought them to my facilities for me to conduct a microscopic examination of the evidence bullets and test bullets. I had fired the gun and obtained test shots from the gun, and I opened up evidence envelopes that contained the bullets, and I looked at them, and first I thought, well, did the evidence bullets and the test bullets get placed in wrong envelopes? And I asked him, I said, are these the evidence bullets? And he said, oh, yes, those are the evidence bullets. I thought.
But something just seemed a little off.
Something just didn't seem right. The evidence bullets were in very, very good condition.
These were too pristine?
Pristine bullets, yeah. Depending on where it's removed from a body, the bullet can have severe amount of mutilation, damage, trace evidence, blood, hair, bone, tissue, on the nose of the bullet.
In layman's terms, the ballistics were bogus. Townsend believes someone swapped the slugs from Bennett's body with the test bullets fired from Desmond's mother's gun.
The physical evidence didn't match what he was charged with.
Townsend shows us how the alleged switch could have happened.
The Detroit PD crime lab evidence envelopes, they weren't sealed. They had string. So you would have a button on the top and a button on the bottom, and then you could open and close it numerous times.
Townsend claims when he said he wouldn't testify that the bullets in the evidence envelope were the ones that killed Bennett, the prosecutor said, show up or else.
You either come or we're going to send a car, bring you down here, and then put you in jail for contempt of court. I testified on it and said these bullets are the ones I examined. These bullets were identified as having fired from this gun. And that was basically it.
You were strong-armed into being there to testify.
Yeah, kind of, yes.
Bullet switching? Forced testimony? What's going on? Desmond says it's painfully obvious. He was framed.
In your wildest nightmares, did you ever think that someone in an entity like the Detroit Police Department crime lab would frame you?
No. I can know all day that it's not right.
So
but if
you
I
knew
can't,
they changed the bullet?
Yes, ma'am. I knew that gun didn't commit that crime. This gun that prosecutor said was a murder weapon is not.
But despite all of this coming out long after the conviction for second-degree murder and his appeals all exhausted, there was about to be some stunning news that would give Desmond a big break. The state shut down the Detroit Police Crime Lab because of serious errors in many cases unrelated to Desmond's.
This was a case that turned on one piece of evidence, and it turned on one piece of evidence that we knew we should be suspicious of. We knew we should be suspicious of it because it came from a crime lab that was shut down.
As Desmond was wrestling with his legal strategy, he stumbled upon a chance meeting with prisoner advocate Claudia Whitman from the National Capital Crime Assistance Network.
How did you meet Desmond Ricks?
I was actually working on another case of somebody who was in the same prison, and this person said, you really ought to meet Desmond Ricks because he has a very strong innocence case. I felt it could be proven, but from day one, I didn't know if they had preserved the bullets, and that was the key thing.
Claudia investigated Desmond's claims, but would she gain access to the bullets that might have been destroyed after decades in storage?
I thought, well, if those bullets are gone, how are we ever going to win this case?
Claudia put Desmond in touch with David Moran, who runs the Innocence Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School.
You can't come away with any conclusion other than that there was fraud going on. They were just declaring matches between guns and bullets that didn't really match.
This wasn't just negligence. This was fraud.
They knew they were going to get caught. They knew that David Townsend would say, you can't match these bullets to any gun. And so what did they do? They switched the bullets. They gave David Townsend the test-fired bullets.
But how would Desmond and his legal team prove it? In a strange twist of fate, Desmond was working on his case in the prison law library and just happened to run across an ad in the back of a legal journal.
I just happened to go in the back and looked at the forensic page, and there his name was, David Townsend. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, is this the same guy? Because he was an older gentleman back then.
Yes, the same guy, David Townsend. Now Desmond wonders, could the man who helped put him away now help get him out? Desmond Ricks spent half his life in prison for a murder he says he didn't commit, and he vowed he would spend the rest of his life proclaiming his innocence.
It didn't matter how long I was in there. I'm not gonna let you take from me the only thing I got left. The only thing I had left was my innocence.
So Desmond did something many might compare to throwing a Hail Mary pass. He tracked down the guy whose testimony put him away, ballistics expert David Townsend, and asked for his help.
So you got a call from Desmond Ricks. How many years later? What was that call like?
It might have been 20 years later. I answered the phone and it took me by surprise. It was a case of going back and trying to do what I could do to make things right by him.
Remember, Townsend said he always believed the bullets introduced as evidence were actually the test bullets, not the slugs removed from the body of Desmond's friend, Jerry Bennett. The first thing Townsend did was to view pictures of the evidence from a quarter-century earlier.
His attorney sent me photographs of the two evidence bullets. And I looked at them and said, those aren't the bullets I examined.
You instantly knew.
Oh, absolutely.
With that information, Desmond's attorney from the University of Michigan Innocence Clinic went to the judge to argue the evidence was falsified. But his attorney, Caitlin Plummer, says getting an exoneration, even with solid proof, is no slam dunk.
I think there's resistance in any old case to reopening it after the fact. The ballistics was the case, and so we knew if we could disprove that, then we could prove he didn't do it.
Part of that proof would come from the conclusion of independent firearms examiner David Baelish, formerly with the Michigan State Police.
The bullets that were used as evidence were too pristine to have gone in contact with bone in someone's body.
Absolutely.
There's no way they could have been the bullets.
Zero chance.
All of that was enough to convince the judge. And in a dramatic moment, Desmond walked out a free man.
When you finally heard those words, that you are free,
Yes, ma'am.
how did that feel after all that time?
It felt like it was finally over. When I did get a chance to go out in the hallway, I exhaled. You know, I took that last exhale, let all that bad air out.
What was the hardest part of losing 25 years of your life?
My mother died. I lost nephews, my uncle, my grandmother, just all my family members that were alive when I went in there. I'm the oldest living male figure on my mother's side of the family. They're 51 years old.
Desmond says that's why he moved his daughters and grandchildren in with him.
I love the time I spend with them. Every morning before school, they come in my room, Grandpa, you know, got the snack bag with the candy on the floor, they get the snack bag, and we just watch cartoons until it's time to get dressed and go to school.
He's definitely making up for lost time. But what about 25 years of lost income and retirement savings? According to Michigan law, Desmond is entitled to $50,000 a year for every year he was falsely imprisoned. That's a whopping $1.25 million tax-free.
I don't think any amount of money can ever compensate somebody for however many years they spent in prison. You know, and $50,000 is probably not enough. You know, it should probably be $1 million for every year.
And that's why Desmond is now making a federal case of it. He hired civil attorney Wolfgang Mueller to sue the city of Detroit and the 2 police officers who he claims falsified the evidence.
What is the monetary compensation you're asking for in this case?
It'll be $125 million. And I expect that a jury, when they hear all the evidence, will render a verdict for every penny of that.
Was this egregious misconduct?
This was, I think, purely evil in that they started with an intentional fabrication of evidence, and then they just started lying. This is not a mistake.
At this time, there was no way to tell that the gun had been fired recently.
Crime Watch Daily has obtained the video deposition of David Pouch, the now retired Detroit police evidence technician named in the lawsuit.
That means your conclusion, as we look on your report, that this is a positive ID, that the bullets came from that gun, 1 is incorrect. Are you with me?
I'm with you, but...
Okay. So now the question is, since you are competent, I gotta ask you, did you come to that conclusion because you're incompetent or because you did it on purpose?
Neither one, sir.
Pouch said he didn't recall the murder investigation, and he denies any wrongdoing in his analysis of the ballistics. We reached out to the Detroit cops for reaction to the lawsuit, but they told us, quote, "At this time, the Detroit Police Department has no comment."
They switched the bullets. David Townsend was right.
This is criminal.
It is. They test fired the Mary Ricks's mom's gun apparently into a water tank, pulled those bullets out and passed them off as the ones that came from Jerry Bennett's body. We referred it to the Michigan Attorney General's office, and we were told that there's virtually no chance anything will happen because the statute of limitations is almost certainly run for fraud.
He paid time for their crime.
That's right.
For now, Desmond is focusing on his family, relishing the sweet taste of freedom.
How long does it take to get out of prison mode into freedom mode?
I'm still wrestling with it now, every day. But I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm happy, I'm grateful, and I'm humbled.